Ooh, we're speeding through these days now, guys. It's only a matter of time until I guess that this thing is all going to go to hell. Wait a minute, and welcome. My name is Yuusha Anime, and welcome back to The Fruit of Grisaia, Part 43. Now, we are at the 10th day. The real question is, what day are we actually going to break out of here? And also, judging by the CG in the background, I didn't notice this until now, but it looks absolutely soaked. I have a feeling that the final day that we're going to be here is probably going to be in like 2 or 3 days. That, I think, is what's going to happen. Obviously, I know that the teacher won't obviously bring help if they do, or they die, for the reason being that Amane was the only survivor. But, enough about that. Let's just get straight to this. So guys, ikimashouka! The 10th day in the valley.
また雨だ。もううんざり。雨が降ると途端に体がだるくなる。頭が重い。テントの中にいても雨はどんどん染み込んでくるし、慢性化した湿気が原因なのか、苔だかカビだかの青臭いような匂いがますます濃くなってくる。
Yep, so you can end up pretty sick.
ここ数日の雨の様子はほとんど梅雨の様相だ。今度の雨は相当にしつこい。当分止みそうもない。テントを叩く雨粒の音でなんとなくそうわかる。梢の隙間を伝って育った大きな雨粒がテントに当たる音は不規則で、ずっと聞いているとイライラしてくる。満たされない空腹もまたイライラの原因だった。
I mean, when you are hungry, you tend to get more irritated at the most minute of things. So,
もはや口癖のように、ああお腹が空いたと私が口にすれば、最近の和樹は眉を寄せる。そんなこと言われなくても分かっているわと、機嫌が悪くなるのだ。
There's not a lot she can do about it, really.
それでも私が空腹を訴え続ければ、最後にはうるせえ、寝ちまえと、そんなことを言い出す。
Just command you to sleep.
ちょっと、私はそんなことを言った覚えはないわよ。
Oh, I'm speaking out loud.
私は動く必要のない時には眠るのも立派な仕事よと言っただけでしょ。
Oh God, don't tell me I'm already mixing the facts in my head.
やだな、和樹。勝手に私の日記を読まないでよ。
読んでないわよ。あなたが日記を書きながらそれを声に出して勝手に私に聞かせていたんでしょ。
嘘。
Oh God, she has a bad habit, doesn't she?
重症ね。気をつけなさい、Amane。まるで一人でブツブツと文句を言いながら料理をするとんかつ屋の主人みたいで気持ち悪いわよ。
何それ。よくわかんないけど、人の顔を真剣に見つめてキモいとか言わんといてもらえる？へこむわ。
ほら、私が捕まえたカタツムリをあげるから、これでも食べて元気を出しなさい。
Oh.
もうでんでん虫飽きた。っていうか、虫以外のものが食べたいよ。
When you gotta survive, there's not a
カ
lot
タ
you
ツム
can
リは
do.
陸外よ。まあ、貝は虫じゃないのかと言われると微妙なのだけれど、それよりAmane。
Katsuki pointed to her cheek with one finger, as if to tell me I had a grain of rice stuck to the corner of my mouth. After a brief moment of confusion, I brought my hand up to my face. My finger quickly found something slimy on my cheek. There's a snail on my face. That's to say, oh, great, we got a leech. A leech. I've grown exceptionally tough-minded about this sort of thing. Another leech wasn't going to get a scream out of me this late in the game. Carefully peeling the creature off my cheek, I held it between the fingertips of both hands, dug my nails into its body, and ripped it apart. Damn, just like a savage. Like, oh, another one? Let me just crush it to pieces. Yeah, there you go, as you were saying. This was another lovely side effect of the rain. Leeches had begun to find their way inside of our oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Are they eating through the fabric? After waking up, peeling the bloodsuckers off my body was becoming the first part of my daily routine. First and foremost, I had to peel them off my eye. Oh, God! Eyelids. Next, I want to stick into my neck, wrist, and ankles. The leeches seem to have a particular fondness for these points where the body grows narrow. Well, it's just so that they can reach the blood more easier, is what I think. Yeah. Other than that, they'd also go for places where my skin was thin. Yeah, the back of my knees and elbows, and my armpits, and There were even a few that burrowed in between my no! Oh, God, that's making me wriggle. No, as if trying to make themselves a cozy little nest. The first few times this happened, we'd shriek hysterically when we woke, but after a few days, we'd lost the will to even moan. And either our bodies had developed a resistance to hirudin, or we'd just gotten used to be treating the bites, as the trickle of blood from the wounds would now stop after only an hour. Only an hour? Excuse me? Kazuki speculated our growing sodium deficiency might be affecting the salinity of our blood. There's no way to tell for sure. Well, I guess. As the day crept into the evening without a break in the rain, Kazuki and I headed to the large tent in order to visit Hiroka-san and Sakurai-senpai. Outside, I started the usual fire under the primitive stove, made the usual thin, watery weed soup, and boiled the usual bucket of hot water. With the gruel in my right hand and the hot water in my left, I made my way to the hospital tent. It was important to remember which was in which hand, since it was no longer obvious which was the water and which the gruel. Calling it gruel was a bit of a joke by this point. At a glance, it looked more like stone soup. Even so, since we were mixing in a bit of the rice distributed to Kazuki and me, the wounded Sakurai and Hiroka were still eating slightly better than the rest of us. So they're both still in here.
ありがとう、アマネ。そこの手ぬぐいを熱湯で消毒して、広岡さんの体を拭いてあげてくれる？
任せて。
Yep, let's treat her. Kazuki didn't turn around when I entered the tent. She was steadily unwinding the yellow-stained bandages from Sakurai's stomach and removing the gauze from her wound to be replaced. We'd washed the gauze. Is it gauze or gauze? Gauze over and over in boiling water to the point it was beginning to blacken. It made for all the more striking a contrast against the yellow pus that permeated its surface. No matter how many times we carefully disinfected Sakurai's lacerations, the suppuration wasn't showing any signs of stopping. If we weren't in this situation, it surely wouldn't have been difficult to treat, but given our unsanitary conditions, the utter lack of medical supplies, we simply couldn't stop the bacteria from multiplying. Above all else, the patient wasn't getting the nutrition her body needed to fight its way to recovery. Yeah, this is getting more bleak and with the rain no less. When I reached out for the dirty gauze in order to sterilize it for reuse, I noticed something squirming on its surface. There's a leech. It was a maggot. Wait a minute. Maggots can be good for eating harmful bacteria though. They never eat good bacteria. I remember seeing like a fascinating thing with maggots. I remember this back a few years ago. But maggots are very good for eating away some bacteria. Thrashing its fat little body madly from within the depths of the pus that had soaked into the gauze, it almost seemed to be consciously trying to crawl back towards Sakurai's stomach.
こっちはいいから、広岡さんを。
Immersing the washcloth, a strip of cloth cut from an old t-shirt, in the hot water, I left it to soak and begin to unbutton Hiroka-san's uniform. At first, she'd been quite embarrassed to be seen naked, but by now she submitted quietly without even squirming. She might simply have lost the energy necessary to feel shame. Hiroka-san's chest had withered dramatically since the first time I'd wiped her clean. Her ribs stood out distinctly against the surface of her skin. Dang it. and that skin was mottled here and there with small white flecks. Small fuzzy little spots could be dusted off by hand. At first I thought them to be something like cotton dust from her sleeping bag. That's her skin. When I asked Kazuki, I learned for the first time that mold can grow on a living human body. Oh, it's mold. It's mold. Yeah, mold can grow in a living body, that is true. Hiroka-san was covered in pale white mildew.
ちょっと待ってね。今熱いタオルで拭いてあげるから。
私もう痛い。
What?
何？なんて？
She's not gonna say, I just want to die, is she? Hiroka's dry, cracked lips were moving slightly. I lowered my ear to her mouth.
私もう死にたい。
She did.
大丈夫だよ。ちょっとカビが生えただけじゃん。
Scooping the washcloth out of the hot water with a pair of chopsticks, I waited for it to cool below scalding, and then gave it a vigorous squeeze.
体中がかゆいの。気が変になりそう。もう嫌。
我慢して。今きれいにしてあげるから。
I dropped the moderately hot towel against Hiroka's body and began to wipe. The mold came off cleanly, but underneath there were innumerable angry swollen red welts where fingernails had dug into her. Ah, she's been itching
吐いちゃ
it.
ダメって言ったのに。
The more she scratched, the more she spread the mold across her body.
ごめんなさい。どうしても我慢できなくて。
Yeah, this is getting very bleak now. Wide-scale, unrelenting itchiness is absolute torment. No matter how firmly you're told not to scratch, you'll unconsciously claw at your body while asleep. Hiroka-san's reflexive habit had grown so extreme that we'd actually tried binding her hands to prevent this. That night, she had woken the entire camp screaming. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Writhing her body against her restraints, she had scraped her body against the hard ground, crying again and again for help. Bloody hell.
ありがとう、スオさん。気持ちいい。
When I wiped her body clean, the itchiness would reduce at once. She described it as almost a blissful sensation. Even so, that comfort would last an hour or two at most. Once wrapped in her sleeping bag, the itchiness would return to her body. Return as her body temperature began to rise. I was now making a time-consuming trip to wipe her clean many times a day.
ごめんね。面倒ばっかりかけて。本当にごめんなさい。私、きっともうすぐ死ぬから。それまではごめん。
Yeah, this episode started out really depressing. She knows that she's gonna go soon. In fact, I think she's known for a while now.
大丈夫だよ。そんなこと言っちゃダメだよ。体を拭いてあげるぐらいいつだってしてあげるから元気出してよ。
If anything, it was bitterly sad to know there was nothing more I could do for her. No matter how hard I tried. You're just trying to ease some of the pain off of her. You really are.
スオさん。私、
Aww.
この恩は必ず返すから。
Aww.
そうして。そのためには絶対に生き残らないと。ね。
私、死んでも絶対にこの恩を忘れないよ。
Aww. As she spoke, tears began to run in little streams down Hiroka-san's face.
だからそういうこと言わないの。大丈夫。死なないから。
Wiping a tear from Hiroka-san's cheek with the tip of my finger, I reflexively brought it to my mouth. Hiroka-san's tears were still salty. I was slightly envious of that. That rain keeps on making me jump every single time. And it's day 11, isn't it? And it's still raining. God damn it. The 11th day in the valley. It was still raining. It had never stopped raining. There was nothing to do but sit around shivering and wait for the weather to clear. Doing nothing all day took a surprisingly heavy toll in its own right. After 10 minutes or so of aimless idleness, you'd be seized by an anxious, impatient need to do something. Anything. But it was impossible to step outside even briefly without being drenched in the downpour. The cold rain would drain your energy with terrifying swiftness. Yeah, it really does that. And once you got wet, you stayed that way. We knew it was dangerous to stay in soaked clothes, but we just didn't have the means to get them dry. The constant seeping rainwater had begun to corrode the thin material that made up the bottom of our tent. Lying down even with the buffer of the sleeping mat would leave our whole bodies sopping wet. We had no choice but to sit and wait. Oh wow. So it's gotten to the point now where the ground is even gone below us because it's that bad, that weather's that bad. In the afternoon, the rain slowed to a heavy drizzle. I had just managed to get a cooking fire going when an eerie sound began to echo across the camp. Someone was singing loudly. It was unmistakably Ibuki's voice. Oh god, she snapped, doesn't she?
ついに行かれたか?
Kaneda laughed harshly, an ugly contorted excuse for a smile on her face. Wait, Ibuki, the one with the green hair, is singing.
うるせえぞ! Ibuki!
In an attempt to end the mournful, grimace-inducing dirge, Kaneda Senpai held a rock in Ibuki's direction. The stone fell a few feet short, and Ibuki turned in our direction to examine it. Her face was ghastly white, her skin dull. It looked as though she had aged 20 years in the last few days. Has she not been eating? Picking up the muddy stone, Ibuki pressed it against her nose and sniffed curiously. Apparently deciding it wasn't food, she tossed it casually aside and continued her song. When the world grows warped around you, those who can't bend simply break. But watching Ibuki caterwauling idly up at the rain cloud-filled sky as if to summon the sun, I wondered if derangement might sometimes be a blessing rather than a curse. Derangements are usually considered a paradise for those in them. It's the ones outside of them that suffer the most.
なんなんだろうね、あれ。たまにああやっておかしくなるけど、しばらくすると普通に会話できるし、いつものブッキーに戻ってるんだよね。
Is this maybe her only outlet?
需要不足らしいですよ。
Undernutrition. Oh, it's a symptom.
いつかは私らもあんな風になるのかね。金田先輩、ここへ来る前、ダイエットとかしてました？
Oh, it's diets, god damn it.
じゃあ大丈夫じゃないですか?
So that's why she went on a diet and it's messed with her current balance here. Jesus! From what Kazuki told me, Ibuki had been repeatedly subjecting herself to severe gimmicky diets over the last few months, leaving her with chronic vitamin deficiencies. So that's why she has undernutrition. Since arriving here, that pre-existing condition had apparently worsened the effects of malnutrition on her body, giving rise to impaired brain function. So you're telling me that she's becoming brain damaged?
参っちゃうよね。うちの子守ももうだいぶやばい感じだよ。
Komori was still shut up in their tent, nursing her dog through a high fever. Apparently she was feeding every scrap of her rations to the animal. Wouldn't that have killed it? Wouldn't that have killed
あい
it?
つの家和菓子屋じゃん。親は二人とも仕事で忙しくてめったに構ってもらえなかったみたいでさ。兄弟もいないあいつには犬が兄弟なんだよね。まあわかるけどさ。
Even as Kaneda spoke, those carefully neutral words, her mouth was twisted with undisguised loathing. Her true feelings were written on her face. She unambiguously hated that feverish, immobile little dog. It was of no use to her, and so she wanted it to disappear. It was as simple as that, because she wants to see her friend live, and the dog is taking some more of that hope.
みんなどんどん弱ってく。このまま私らみんな死ぬんだ。
Yeah, it's getting very depressing now. Jesus. Let me just have a drink of water. Because, yeah, I need something to get my mood up. Now I think about it, drinking water now is probably an insult, but oh well. I understood from the tone of her voice that this wasn't more of the usual gallows humour. I understood with such painful clarity that I wished she said nothing at all. Glancing up at the sky as the rain began to intensify yet again, I slowly picked myself up off my seat of rock. I can't take this. Couldn't we at least catch a break on this rain? It was adding insult to injury. Knowing full well that it was ridiculous, I did my best whiny preschool impression and asked Kazuki to make the rain stop. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
だから私は神様じゃないのよ。
似たようなもんでしょ。
Everyone called Kazuki a witch. Well, except for the ones who called her a monster. Oh, God. In that case, a little rain magic shouldn't be too much to ask of her, right? Well, she's not a witch. How could she control it? I mean, I knew it was idiotic, but asking is free. In response to my challenge, Kazuki closed both eyes and exhaled heavily through her nose, as if to say, oh, very well then, and lifting both eyes towards the sky, she spoke to the heavens. To wit, O rain, I command you to be gone! An exceptionally half-hearted command that dissolved into an open-mouthed yawn at the end. I appreciate that she was considerate enough to play along with my nonsense, but if she was going to bother, couldn't she have at least pretended she was taking it seriously? Oh! Well, as it turned out, an hour or so after that, maybe the rain really did come to a sudden stop. You had to laugh. So the rain's gone. Woohoo! Kazuki craned her neck back, idly gazing up as the clouds flowed peacefully by.
何でも試してみるものね。
I spoke characteristically impudent words in her characteristically sleepy voice. Staring at her face from side to side, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The witch theory was seeming increasingly plausible. Although she's not a witch, of course. Not that, on reflection, I really cared if she was some sort of black magician. It'd be nice to have one on our side right about now. If I ask her to spirit everyone to safety for her next trick, I wonder what would happen. Asking's free, after all. I looked over at Kazuki, debating whether to throw this new challenge at her. But before I could decide, she stared up into my eyes and spoke.
全員は無理。そう言ったはずよ。
Yeah, she already said that.
だから私が質問する前に答えを先に言うのはマナー違反だよ。
あなたは考えていることがすぐに顔に出るから分かりやすいのよね。
Just comes up in Comic Sans. It can't be everyone. Her tone of voice was surprisingly breezy, but somehow almost also exceptionally firm, as if the outcome was set in stone, as if she was merely repeating an established fact. Kazuki's internal calculations must have established something very close to 100% possibility that more of us would die in this place. Well, that's all I can get from it, and it seems most likely, especially if, I'd say probably, Hiroka would... If I was to say who would go first, I'd say Hiroka would probably be first to go. Then I'd imagine it would be Ibuki, considering the state that she's in. And then I think it would be the glamour girl, which I can't remember her name. Then maybe the basketball captain. I don't know why. Captain Sakashita has not appeared anywhere yet in the past couple of days, so I'm curious on what she's doing. I repeatedly asked her about the details of our predictions, receiving only variations of the frustrating non-answer. If I told you, the future I've predicted would change. When I finally told her that changing this future sounded like a pretty good idea to me, she coolly replied, even if it would mean none of us survive at all. And I found myself at an utter loss for words. Well, maybe not utter. There was still one old reliable that came to mind. Kazuki. Oh.
で
Wait, what? Excuse me? Don't look at me like that. I'm perfectly aware that I'm an idiot. You don't have to rub it in. Even now, Kazuki said the possibility of everyone surviving wasn't quite zero. By believing in those words, I could hold on to hope. If I had hope, I could find the strength to go on. Yeah, that's right. I have to be stronger than this. But it was hard. It was very hard. A full 2 days had passed since Mr. Olchi left the camp, and as always there were no signs of rescuers active nearby. Naturally, our teacher hadn't returned either. Oh, wow. We're all just here. Is Mr. Olchi lying dead in a ditch somewhere? Right, I want to have a better look at this CG. Hold on one second. God damn. So, yeah. Near enough, everyone's not feeling too good. Even Ibuki, Ibuki looks the worst out of them all, actually. Actually, now that I think about it, I wonder how Dr. Girl's doing as well, because we haven't really heard anything from her in a little while. Maybe he's got on to some safe place and just abandoned us here? What do we do if he never comes back? Amid a flurry of aimless speculation, we passed the days waiting for help to arrive. They didn't come today, but they'll definitely come tomorrow. They didn't come today either, but they'll probably come tomorrow. Mr. Ochi said he'd get help no matter what when he left here. Not even half the group really believed it. But even so, somewhere deep down, every one of us was clinging to that glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he'd save us all. That maybe grew feebler by the day, eroded by cruel reality. Even as we came to understand that waiting would only bring us a slow death, we clung to that shred of hope, piling speculation upon speculation. We built excuses out of sand. We convinced ourselves it was too early to decide. We stayed where we were, and we waited for nothing. Trapped in oblivious lethargy, we lived for nothing but to avoid death. Oh, hello, cicadas. You're as loud as always. When our stomachs growled, we chewed on blades of grass and insects. When our throats were parched, we gulped from the first puddle of dirty water we saw. Naturally, it wasn't long before our stomachs turned violently against us. Somebody said chewing bamboo charcoal might be effective against diarrhea. Within hours, everyone's mouth was stained black. We searched and searched for anything edible. As long as it was digestible, we ate it. Anything and everything. The rest of our time was spent lying in our sleeping bags, stroking our cramping weak stomachs as we pretended to sleep. If we were lucky enough to fall unconscious, there was a brief respite from the pain. Jesus. And we're on day 12. We've gone through like 2 days. In very quick succession. Jesus. Something is coming. I know something is coming. I don't know what, but it's coming. Oh, it's coming. Lately I was waking every morning from dreams of food. Walking in the forest, I come across a trailer cart with broken reels. When I draw close and look over the edge, there's a huge cardboard box full of canned food just sitting inside. Wait, what? Not just full? Bursting at the seams! There were dozens of cans in that box. Beef boiled with soy sauce and ginger, mackerel cooked in miso, even canned peaches and pineapples. Wait, seriously? And tucking my shirt to make a pouch, I cautiously load it full of cans, making sure to stay alert and keep an eye on my surroundings. After bringing all of this back, everyone will be able to eat until our stomachs are bulging. What a fantastic windfall. The looks on their faces when I come back. Not to worry. We have a can opener. But seriously, what was a bike cart doing all the way up in the mountains in the first? Yeah, how did we never notice it before? A moment after that doubt flashes through my mind, I abruptly realise, oh, this is a dream. Anyway, I'll just take these back to the camp now. Let's all gorge ourselves until we can't eat another bite. I tried to focus on that thought, but once the first realisation hit, I can never manage to fall back into the illusion. Mostly I wake up with a start at this point. The instant my eyes opened, my stomach began gurgling violently, and the wrenching physical pain of it twisted my face into a miserable grimace. Even if it was a dream, I wished I'd at least taken a bite. When I wrapped up the story at this point, everyone would always laugh. You're just an idiot, Amane. I'd hide half the food. I'd give everybody one can, then hide the rest. I'd hide the whole stash and eat it in secret. The majority openly admitted something along these lines and added with clear amusement that I was probably the only one stupid enough to come skipping right back without a second thought. Oh. It was now the 12th day. 12 days we spent living worse than stray dogs. Even among those who had been comparatively healthy, unmistakable symptoms of weakening were beginning to appear. The soft footsteps of death creeping steadily up behind us. Steadily up behind us were growing impossible to ignore. Our nerves were rubbed raw from tension, our spirits timid and fearful. The first to be caught by our shadowy pursuer was Komori-san's pet, Akun, the Shih Tzu Allione. Is the puppy dead? It wasn't a durable breed by nature, and what food we had simply wasn't suitable for a dog with a weak stomach. And so, having fallen into a high fever during the days of relentless rain, Allione simply never opened his eyes again. He died quietly early this morning. The dog's dead! No! No, we lost our way back! Oh, no! There we go. There we go. The first down. It was the dog. Kneeling in front of the lifeless body, flat on its side with limbs stiffly extended, rigor mortis has already set in then. Komori-san removed the collar around Allione's neck and wrapped it around her thin wrist. That dog had been like a brother to Komori, but she didn't break into loud wails over its corpse. Her strangled sobs forced their way out from behind clenched teeth, seeming all the more piteous for it. Nobody could find anything to say to her. After a time, someone mumbled about at least giving the animal a proper burial. Kazuki immediately raised an objection. Eat the dog! Yep. Yep, exactly what I was thinking. We'd all been vaguely thinking it, but deeply ingrained social norms had kept us from admitting that even to ourselves, and yet Kazuki had blurted it out almost casually.
食べるって犬を？
そう。この子に助けてもらうのよ。
At least Kazuki's typical cold words. Kazuki's typically cold words, every one of us sharply drew breath. Eat? Yes, there was nothing in the world we wanted to do more at this moment. The dog in front of us was nothing but a corpse. Now that it was dead, it was no longer a dog. It was meat. Do you know what? I think after this point, it's possible that somebody may become a cannibal if somebody else dies. Would it be okay to eat a dog that died from sickness? It was Kazuki's suggestion, so presumably it was safe, but surely we couldn't start talking about this right in front of the grieving Komori-san, and this whole idea just felt so wrong. We all hesitated. The silence grew. To be honest, we wanted to eat it, but something inside us was still offering considerable resistance to the idea. And nobody could make up their own mind. All eyes settled on our last remaining formal authority figure, Captain Sakshita.
そうね。彼女の意見が正しいわ。
She doesn't want to eat it, but she knows that it's one of the only things we can do. From the expression on the captain's face, those undeniably callous words must have tasted bitter in her mouth. Komori-san jerked her head up as if stung, then slowly turned from side to side, looking into our faces one by one. Everyone averted their eyes from Komori's tearful gaze. Everyone except Kazuki, who met it firmly and gave her a small nod. Staring steadily down into those plaintive eyes, Kazuki murmured, "This is Allione's final duty." Komori-san's face crumpled as she slowly croaked out an answer.
わかりました。
This one's a tough one for me, because my dog that I had years ago, he's unfortunately passed away like a few years back, and he was my best friend. He was actually, at that time, one of the only friends I ever had, so if I was in a situation like this, I would hate the thought of doing this. I would hate it. Wow. But the dog would want their family to live. They would. Inhuman. The word was written clearly on Komori-san's face for any who cared to look. Even so, most of us let out small, involuntary sighs of relief at her surrender.
だったら虫が湧く前に肉にした方がいいわね。
But that relief was short-lived. Kazuki's words once again left all of us frozen like stones. Right, if we were going to eat that corpse, we'd have to butcher it first. There was no choice. We had to pluck the hair from the dog's body and carve it up using a knife. But of course no one wanted that job. Again, we looked to the captain. Biting her lower lip, the captain looked in turn to Kazuki. And finally Kazuki closed her right eye and tilted her head lightly to the left.
皆さん、じゃんけんってご存知?
Oh no! Oh no! It's gonna be her, isn't it? The blue hair girl. She's gonna be the loser, isn't she? As a result of an impartial game of chance, the duty of processing the corpse fell on Koide-senpai. The doctor girl. She tried briefly to resist protesting. I've never butchered a dog before, but of course none of us had made a habit of carving up puppies either. So the argument didn't really hold together. As the kitchen knife trembled dangerously in Koide's hand, the captain tried offering her some rough encouragement along the lines of, "You're a doctor's daughter, aren't you?" To be honest, though, it was a little hard to grasp what that had to do with anything. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you should know the difference between a veterinarian and a doctor. Visibly bracing herself, Koide gripped the knife firmly in both hands and took a step forward. But in that moment, her eyes met those of the dead dog below her, and she immediately burst into terrified tears. Naturally, the gallant hero Kazuki stepped in to save the day. Taking in her good hand the punishment rod she normally used to strike the pan for our morning wake-up call, she swung it down with all her might on the dog's head. Oh! Jeez! Oh! Oh! Well then, that would wake anyone up. I'm just saying, if you weren't paying attention to anything in this, that would wake you up. I was thinking, hold on, what's she gonna do then? I thought she was gonna whack Koide for a second and say, get on with it. You lost. But no, she just literally went and pounded the dog's head in. Everyone gasped in shock at the gruesome act. Many barely stifling screams. If I start shrieking pointlessly, maybe I'm next. The irrational fear seized us all, and silence fell over the valley.
これでもうどこが目なのかわからないでしょ? 頑張りなさい.
Meeting eyes with the dog is scary, is it? Then we'll just crush its eyes beyond recognition. It was about as elegant a solution as blowing off your jaw with a shotgun to cure a toothache. I mean, you can't have a toothache if you don't have no teeth.
"私がやってもいいけど、あなた、私がいなかったらどうするの?もし生き残ったのがあなた一人だったら、誰も助けてはくれないのよ."
Ooh. As she spoke, Kazuki tossed her wooden sword aside, then took the kitchen knife from Koide's hands with a disdainful little snort. Everyone's got their hands full with their own problems right now. I mean, I was curious on what was going to happen with her, and now we've had something happen with Koide. If you're weak, you're simply going to die first. Kazuki might not have said it point blank, but her meaning was all too clear. We studied the ground at our feet in silence. The strong eat the weak. That's usually what they say, survival of the fittest. Men and beasts, insects and plants, all live and die by that rule. Many hissed about Kazuki's cruelty in low voices, but her powerful words and unhesitating actions left no room for open objection. Well, what would you rather? Lose a possible source of food? Or actually have someone have the freaking guts to do it? Kazuki possessed not only the decisive personality of a leader, but also the ability to inspire fear characteristic of a ruler. Everyone could only hang their heads and obey.
あなた、随分と素敵な人ね。
And now, of course, you're gonna be a bitch.
でしょ? あなたの彼氏にも同じことを言われた?
Oh, that's like middle school clapbacks. I love it.
お肉の用意ができたら真っ先にお声をかけますから、今は引っ込んでいていただけます？
Yeah, all you can do is insult. So, shut up. Captain Sakashita turned abruptly on her heel and stalked away without another word.
強引だな。部長泣いてたよ。
What?
あのまま喧嘩になるよりはマシでしょ。
Yeah.
うるさい女を黙らせるにはああいうしかなかったのよ。
I mean...
部長の彼氏って誰なの？
Oh.
さあ、でも何の反論もしてこないところを見ると、
It's gotta be the teacher,
心当
right?
たりのある存在がいるのか、もしくは彼氏がいないことをバカにされたと思って二の句を告げなくなったか、そのどちらかね。
I have a feeling she's been doing something with the teacher.
もし部長が切れて飛びかかってきたらどうするつもりだったの？
あなたなら平気で犬の頭を潰すような女に襲いかかる？
Normally, you wouldn't see that, so there's nothing more intimidating than that. I think the only thing closest to that is when you T-pose upon those weaker than you. That is the only thing that can probably come to being close to that.
つまりはそういうことよ。
I mean, when the first person to cause blood and see blood, there is a different point of view.
全部計算していたのね。
Well, I think she was trying to steal them to see if they can actually even survive.
それは買いかぶりすぎよ。部長に襲いかかられる確率もゼロではなかったわ。まあその時は無様に殴られてみんなの同情を集めようと思っていたけれど、生き残るために犬の頭を潰す女と個人的な感情を暴走させて怪我人を殴る女、みんなはどっちの味方になるかしら。あなた、どう思う？
Yeah, they were the one that tried to help him survive, rather than the one that
怖い人だね
shouted.
和樹。
She's not
そう
wrong!
ね、自覚はあるわ。私みたいな女は男の子にはモテないでしょうね。絶対。
Hum. Considering your brocom tendencies, I wonder. I badly wanted to scream if you're well aware how about doing something about it, but I couldn't anticipate her answer and had delivered in her best nails on a chalkboard girly voice. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's too hard for little old me, or some such. It felt as though I had maggots crawling down my spine at the mere thought. In any case, if there's a single man in the world who'd want to go out with this woman, I'd really like to meet him. So I can get him the help he needs. So you're going to be the one to help give them a few hints, in other words. Are we grilling it? Jesus Christ, that's loud! And so Kazuki cleaned and gutted the dog, reducing it to meat. We soaked it in barbecue sauce from the communal stockpile and cooked its little body in golden brown. The powerful aroma of grease and spicy sauce wafted through the air. We swallowed mouthfuls of warm drool again and again. And just a few days ago, that hunk of meat had been an energetic, adorable little dog, frolicking around Komori's feet. There was definitely a widespread feeling of guilt, but the sound of sizzling meat and the smell of dripping grease were irresistibly alluring. And those who had whispered heatedly about Kazuki's inhuman cruelty couldn't overcome their own stomachs. When the meat was finally grilled and ready to be divided, they all swarmed up with plates in their outstretched hands. I was the one who carved the meat for distribution. The rear legs looked to be the choicest and most nourishing part of the body. Lopping off one with a kitchen knife, I placed it on Captain Sakashita's plate. The second went to Kazuki. Oh, we hear it. After that, I divided the meat as evenly as I could between the rest of us. We had even carefully washed the internal organs and cooked them as well. We got the organs as well. We didn't waste a morsel. After distributing it all, there was nothing left to do but greedily devour my share. It felt like such a very long time since I'd tasted meat. The first bite was so delicious that I went quite literally dizzy with bliss. My protein-starved tongue tingled as the animal fat slowly spread out inside my mouth, and my stomach squeezed tightly in on itself as though consciously trying to wring every particle of sustenance from the food. You're making me hungry. Damn it, I was actually drooling. And that was a dog. No, don't make me do this. No. Of course, it was an ornamental lapdog, a toy breed. When distributed among the entire group, its body provided us with mere mouthful of meat each. Even so, we all wept with joy at the nourishment. And as soon as the meat was gone, everyone began crunching away at the bones. We had assumed Komori would firmly resist the idea of consuming a pet's flesh, but in the end she bit into her share of meat like all the rest, sniffling miserably the entire time, tears blending with the mucus running from her nose. She ate. Damn. Jeez. This was a hell of an eventful day. We have our first drop, and it was the dog. I actually forgot about the dog most of that time, actually. Kind of makes sense that the dog would go first. That one mouthful of meat kept us alive for today. I don't think we'll ever forget that taste for the rest of our lives, even if we want to. Is it the next day? The 13th day in the valley. We are searching through the days. Ooh. Should I keep on going or should I stop here? I'll keep going for a few more minutes. The 13th day in the valley. It happened far too suddenly. What do you mean? Komori's son, who seemed perfectly fine just a moment ago, before crumbled limply to the ground. What? Komori? For a moment, everyone who turned their head at the sound was simply dumbfounded.
Komori?
Kaneda-senpai called out to her partner, but Komori gave no response. Her body had begun to twitch convulsively on the... Oh, shit. Oh, don't tell me she's going to be... She's throwing up, isn't she? Oh. Komori hadn't fainted from lightheadedness or anemia. She was thrashing her body spasmodically, as if she was possessed by some malevolent spirit. It was at once bizarre and terrifying to watch. She's spasming. She's having a fit. Canada, suspecting an epileptic seizure, forcibly pinned down her partner's body from above in an attempt to keep her from hurting herself. Well, okay then. That didn't take long. Koide-senpai and I jumped up to answer Canada's call, as the others looked on in shocked silence. We managed to move Komori onto a blanket, but the seizure continued. At Koide's anxious command, I ran off to find my own partner.
どう？原因は何なの？
倒れた時の様子はどうだったの？
She apparently just suddenly collapsed, right?
わかんないよ。気がついたら地面に倒れてて、魚みたいにピクンピクンって暴れ出して。転換じゃないの？小学生の頃こんな風に倒れた子見たことあるよ。
転換の発作にしては長すぎるわね。
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to be an epileptic fit. Because epileptic fits are usually much more faster than this, and they need to have like a sudden cause to make it happen, right? Komori's breathing was rapid. Her teeth chattered in her mouth, and her unfocused eyes swung randomly from left to right. Her hands and feet trembled strongly on a regular rhythm, as if matching the beating of her heart.
犬を食べたから寄生虫に寄生されたんじゃ。
No, no way.
犬はよく焼いてから食べたでしょ？考えにくいわね。小森さん、何か他に変わったものを食べたりしてなかった？
Oh, don't tell me something's gone wrong with our food now. After a moment of thought, Canada's mouth fell open with a little It was the mushroom, wasn't it?
なんか花の芽を食べてた。
Wait, a flower?
花？何の花？
名前はわからないけど、綺麗なピンク色の初めて見る花だった。これ食べられますかねって言って、その場で何個かつまんで食べてた。
You fools! You utter fools!
なんだろう。
Wolfsbane.
トリカブトの花は紫色だから。ジギタリスかもしれない。
Kazuki laid a hand on Komori's trembling forehead.
熱があるわ。水分をたっぷりと取らせて、体を温かくしていっぱい汗をかかせるしかないわね。
What the hell type of flowers are you trying to eat? You trying to see them purple hills?
それで治るの？
悪いけど、他には何もできないのよ。何にせよ、
これに懲りたらよくわからないものをつまみ食いするのはやめなさい。
I'm surprised that you actually went and did that without inquiring with anyone else here if they knew if it was alright. Idiots. Like, they've gone out there before, so why have they never questioned? Like, if they were there, why haven't we eaten them or something like that? Maybe someone missed them. Probably not. Probably not, but no matter what, you still gotta make sure that what you're eating is actually safe. God dang it. Under these starvation conditions, it was inevitable that our immune systems would grow weak. Recently, drinking water raw had become common practice, as no one wanted to waste time boiling it when they could be searching for food. And when foraging in the forest, many would pop even totally unfamiliar plants into their mouth, as they looked vaguely edible. By now, disease is so mild that a normal person probably wouldn't even notice them were potentially life-threatening to us. That was how weak we had grown. As we slowly carried Komori's quivering body into her tent, we could only grind our teeth at our powerlessness.
Kazami, ちょっといいかな?
Oh, Sakuma? We just left Komori to rest when Sakuma-senpai called out to us.
なんか、伊吹の様子がおかしいんだよ。
Oh, here we go. Ibuki's case has gotten worse, hasn't it? I had a very bad feeling about this. The moment we followed Sakuma into her tent, that presentiment was realized.
ねえ、今日は何日？私たちがここに来てから何日経ったのかな？
Her brain has regressed. Oh no, she's gone to the point of almost being in a daze or a daydream. Wrapped up in her sleeping bag, Ibuki stared intently at a point on the tent's canopy, smiling slackly at nothing in particular as she spoke.
今日は何日？
今日は26日。ここに来て13日目よ。
そう。早く帰りたいな。
Even as she answered, Ibuki's eyes never turned toward us. The tone of her voice was vague, unfocused, almost like a sleepwalker conversing with her dream. Yes. Oh man, her case has really, really gotten bad. As directed, we moved to leave the tent, but Ibuki immediately piped up.
ねえ、どこ行くの？
Uh-oh.
私も行く。
すぐ戻ってくるよ。おとなしく寝てな。
今日は。
Yep, her memory's been shot.
26日だよ。
そう。早く帰りたいな。
Her. Oh, the hippocampus, isn't it? The hippocampus is failing, right? In her brain.
入ったよ。今朝からずっとあの調子なんだ。いつもならすぐに元に戻るのに、今日はもうずっとあんな感じだ。
どうすることもできません。
There's nothing.
ここには薬もなければ自己回復力を上げるだけの需要もないんです。
The brain's so starved that the hippocampus is
この
failing.
まま腐るに任せるしかないのか。見ていることしかできないのか。
申し訳ありません。
君が悪いんじゃないさ。無理を言っているのは私だ。すまなかったね。
いえ。
I mean, Sakuma-senpai's powerless attempt at a smile conveyed only resignation and defeat, made all the more pitiful by her swollen face. She wasn't the flushed swelling of a fever. Her face was drained of all colour, her ghastly pale cheeks visibly rough and dry. She was blinking constantly throughout our conversation. It may have been difficult merely to keep her eyes open behind those bloated cheeks. Is she ill as well?
佐久間さんも栄養失調が顔に出ています。気をつけてください。
Oh.
そうだね。気をつけるよ。
Exactly how was she supposed to be careful about starving when there was no damn food? Sakuma seemed immature in refraining from yelling the obvious retort in Kazuki's face, but quite possibly she simply no longer had the energy. Or maybe she just resigned herself. Well, usually people are usually polite with replying in Japanese, whether it's they mean it or not. Just how long would this situation last? Mentally, physically, in every possible way, we were being taxed beyond our capacity to endure. How long could we possibly hold it together under such circumstances? Even Kazuki, our acknowledged authority on mental toughness, could no longer fully hide her fatigue. Her youthfully framed face, burdened with that accumulated exhaustion, seemed to have aged somehow. Gently closing her eyes, Kazuki breathed a brief sigh, then proceeded to depress me still further. What do you mean?
実はここだけの話、桜井先輩と広岡さんも相当にまずいのよね。
Yeah, Sakurai had initially been recovering fairly well, but our unsanitary environment and inability to adequately disinfect her wound proved catastrophic. She was beginning to exhibit symptoms of sepsis. Oh, sepsis, Jesus Christ. Almost certainly caused by bacteria invading through her wound. Yeah, there's the beauty going. She was now running a high fever with a consistently elevated heartbeat. She tripped over her tongue when she tried to speak, and her limbs were routinely racked by brief, painful muscle spasms, as if her body was trying to contract. She needed antibiotics, and soon. Hiroka-san was no better. In fact, she was worse. Her deliberation had progressed to the point that she no longer showed any response to our voices. So she's becoming comatose? Oh no. It all came down to inadequate treatment compounded by worsening malnutrition. The dog had been our only halfway decent meal in days. Otherwise, we were getting by on cooked snails, wild grasses, and our gruel. Really nothing more than faintly coloured water with a few grains of boiled rice, floating at the bottom. Even minor injuries couldn't heal on such a diet. On the first day of our trip, we ate fluffy white rice, steaming from the cooker. I couldn't get that memory out of my mind. Back then, we gobbled the rice down without a second thought. Even had the nerve to complain about our coarse side dishes. Just remembering it made me want to scream at the pampered luxury of it all. We were so starved for sugar that tea made from the skins of onions almost tasted sweet to our tongues. But then again, our initial yearning for sweets only lasted for the first carefree week or so. At some point, we had begun to crave salt far more than sugar. By now, we had been reduced to licking the rust that formed on the wrecked frame of our bus after the day of rain. Ew. Oh god. I had reached my absolute limit. When I crawled into bed at night, I hesitated to close my eyes, afraid I'd never open them again. But then again, maybe it'd be better that way. If I let my eyelids fall shut, I would sink deeply into blissful oblivion. If my heart would then quietly stop beating, wouldn't it be a blessing? Jesus. I can't help but feel that death without suffering would be a happier fate than to struggle on like this. But whenever I expressed these weak thoughts out loud, Kazuki would scold me. Of course!
まだ諦めるのは早いわ。
Kazuki whispered those words forcefully, as if trying to convince herself they were true. It seemed too cruel to fire back. Then how long do we have to endure? How long before you can finally give up? I could find no further words, and silence settled on the tent. And we're on day 14! The 14th day in the valley. God damn it, okay, I get it, it's morning! When morning came, Kazuki struck the bottom of the pan at our normal wake-up time, but there was no signs of activity from within the tents. What do you mean? It wasn't that the others weren't awake. They simply couldn't get up. Alright, I'm gonna end this here. Oh my god! Oh my god! But now we gotta think. Everyone's getting to the point of desperation. Some people are unable to physically move. And some of them are even having mental problems in general. Oh my god, this is... This is gonna get really messy. I am scared for when I continue this, because now the question is, how long is left? Because I thought it would have been about this time that we leave. I actually thought around this time we would have left, but that's not happened. But unfortunately now I've got to end this part here. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want any more from me. And I shall see you in the next video. So, guys. I'll most certainly see you next time. Oh god, I'm frightened. I'm actually curious to see who's next, because I think somebody's dead.